Hey guys, it's me, the Shoujo Eye. I'm not sure how good this audio is going to be because I usually use my headset when I'm recording, and I don't have any of my headsets charged up right now, so this is the best we'll have to do. This is going to be a quick video, but I know it's been a little while since I uploaded. It's been a lot going on with my life, and I'll probably do another life update. My next video might be another life update, but I really wanted to quickly come on here and talk about Olympus. So I put out a video back in February talking about Olympus chapters 1 through 11, and that was just detailing how Persephone and Hades met, and how they formed an instant connection and rapport. Rapport. So this video is talking about chapters 11 through, I believe, 24. Yeah, chapters 11 through 24. Those of you who are familiar with Olympus and have read as far as that, and maybe they're like me, who've actually have read much further than that at this point. This is a reread. You know what happens in episode 24. Spoiler alert, spoiler warnings for this video. I'm going to be discussing as much as I feel comfortable discussing. So I'm not going to go chapter by chapter like I did in the last video. I'm just going to give my thoughts about what I've seen, okay? So chapter 12 starts with Persephone coming back home, and Artemis dragging her out of Hades' car and lecturing her about what an awful person Hades is, and warning her not to go anywhere near him. So she takes her inside, she helps her clean up. Don't mind the thunder. It's a thunderstorm going on right now. I love rain. I love thunderstorms. I love rainstorms so much. Just don't like working in them. I work outside normally. That's neither here nor there. She helps Persephone with her hair because her hair had gotten long. When Persephone is stressed out or her emotions are getting the best of her, she loses control over her hair, and her hair starts to grow very long. Rapunzel locks. I think I've seen it grow to be several yards long at this point, by different points of the story. But so she talks to her. She makes sure that she's okay. She makes sure that Hades didn't do anything, that Hades wasn't trying stuff with her, and she assures her that Hades was a perfect gentleman. But then Artemis goes on to say that she thinks that Hades is not a good guy, and Persephone is wondering whether or not that really is the case. But they're interrupted before they go too far by Eros, or Cupid, coming to deliver some apology donuts for being the one to basically drug Persephone and put her in the back of Hades' car the night before at the party. So, you know, he's come to apologize. They let him in. They all kind of hit it off. He's a really fun guy. There's a little bit of a focus for a few chapters on his story. And if you know anything about the story of Cupid and Psyche, or Eros and Psyche, then you'll know what that is. I believe I spoke about this in my very first video. I'm not completely sure, but I'm not going to talk about that in detail right now. I want to talk about what happens next, because that's what really has the bearing on the story, both what's going on in these chapters, and then just far-reaching consequences that are happening all the way to where I am now. And I think I'm up to like it's up to like chapter 150 or so right now. We're all the way into season 2, and what happens during these chapters, between chapters 12 and 24, it's nuts. What happens next is Eros tells Persephone that she needs to go shopping because doesn't really have a lot to wear, and he says it'll be his treat So he and Artemis go to the mall with Persephone, and they're treating her to a shopping trip and buying her all sorts of really pretty clothes, and she's very thankful. And Artemis says to her as they're leaving the mall, my brother is going to meet us in the parking lot. He's my twin. He's going to give us a ride back home. And so she's like, okay, who's your brother? She's like, oh, my brother is Apollo. You'll like him. He's a cool guy. So they go out to the parking lot, and there's Apollo posed in front of his car, which is a bright golden car, supposed to be a reference to the fact that Apollo drives a golden chariot in the Greek myths. So here he drives a golden sports car. So he's posing in front of the car because he's seen Persephone through the window, and he's like, oh wow, she's really hot. And he immediately is attracted to her and wants to impress her and get on her good side. So, but he's kind of Hermes, who is with him, and apparently is his roommate, if I'm not mistaken. Hermes gets the jump on him and runs over to see Persephone before Apollos does, because he knows Persephone. He's the messenger god, and apparently he delivers a lot of letters to Persephone from her mom, since Persephone is not staying with her mom anymore. She's living on Olympus, and her mom lives on Earth, human Earth. So Persephone takes an immediate dislike to Apollo. She doesn't like him. You can tell her body language, just the way she's interacting with him. You can tell that she's like, I don't know, there's something about this guy. I don't like it. And he is going out of his way for the rest of the afternoon and evening to be nice to her, to be engaging, to try to get her to like him, to open up. And she's just not really, she just doesn't like him like that. She's like, nah. Even Hermes comments on it. He's like, man, she can't stand you. I've never seen her be this way towards someone. She really does not like you at all. And this really makes Apollo angry. So Persephone is in the kitchen when they get back to her and Artemis's apartment. Persephone's in the kitchen preparing dinner, and everybody's sitting out in the living room. She cuts her hand. She cuts it really bad. And while everyone's scurrying around trying to look for a first aid kit, Apollo goes to the kitchen, and while Artemis and Hermes are looking for the first aid kit, Apollo takes the opportunity to start first aid measures on her hand and to heal her hand. And she thinks to herself, after he heals her hand, maybe he's not as bad as I thought. So she kind of begrudgingly is a little bit more nice to him and whatnot. But she's kind of preoccupied the whole night because Apollo had said to her, and this is one of the reasons why she didn't like him and took such a strong dislike to him. He kept telling her over and over again that Hades is not a good guy, that he's just taking advantage of her because she's young, naive, and dumb, and that, you know, he would never be interested in someone like her except for like a one-night stand or something. So, you know, she's preoccupied and whatnot. That's obviously on her mind. And as the night gets long and whatnot, and it starts to get late, she decides, she says to everyone, hey, I'm going to go to bed. I'm tired. I'm heading in. I'll talk to you later. See you guys in the morning. She goes to bed. Apollo, who had been, I guess, encouraged by the fact that she had been just a smidge nicer to him than she had been. It wasn't like she was, you know, being huggy-wuggy, kissy-wissy with him or anything, or physically affectionate. She just was being more polite and a little nicer to him than she had been before. But for whatever reason, he took that to mean that she had been flirting with him all evening. And he waited till everyone was asleep. He sneaks down the hall to Persephone's room. And before I continue with this, I want to put in a little trigger warning. I'm going to be discussing sexual assault and sexual trauma. The author was kind enough to put in a trigger warning at the beginning of the chapter when this stuff starts happening. So I'm going to do the same for you. From this point onward, sexual assault and sexual trauma will be talked about and discussed. So there's your warning. He sneaks into her room, wakes her up, and she's like, what is it? What do you want? And he's like, you know, I've been wanting to do this all day. And he kisses her. And she's like, what are you talking about? She pushes him away. She's like, what are you talking about? I haven't been doing anything to you all day. I don't get it. And he's like, you've been flirting with me. You've been flirting with me. I can tell you want it. And he's like pressing her back into the bed and stuff and being really physically aggressive. And she's like, you know that I'm here on a scholarship from the eternal maidenhood, what is it, goddesses of eternal maidenhood, that they gave her a scholarship, a college scholarship, I believe a full ride, contingent on her becoming a member of their ranks. I believe the ranks are Artemis, Athena, and Hestia. And they want her to join them and become an eternal goddess of maidenhood, which essentially means like a nun, you're a virgin for life, you know. So she tells Apollo this, and he doesn't give a damn. He's like, you can make an exception for me. And she's like, well, that's not how that works. But he just keeps going, and like, she kind of withdraws into herself a bit, and she's confused, and she's like, is this really what I want? You know, I don't necessarily, she's thinking this in her head, I don't necessarily want to be a goddess of eternal maidenhood. Is that really what I want, or is this just something that I'm being pushed into by my mom? And she's weighing it in her mind, but she's confused because he woke her up. This was in the middle of the night. She had been deep asleep. So she's confused and sleepy and all conflicted and whatnot. And he takes advantage of that, and he just keeps going. And he just keeps hammering away at her like, hey, you know you want this, you know, all this sort of stuff. And like, she begrudgingly says okay, but you can tell she's not really okay with it. And he proceeds to sexually assault her. And she actually has to withdraw into herself, withdraw inside of herself, because she feels so violated. And she feels so much pain and degradation. She's thinking to herself, this isn't how I thought it was going to be. This isn't what I've read about. This doesn't feel anything. This doesn't feel anything like what the stories say. This hurts. This hurts. This is painful. And she's like, I'm going to stay inside myself until he's done. I'm just going to stay here inside my head until he's done. Oh, that hurt. That hurts so much to see. That hurts so much to read. God, that... It happens to a lot of women, being taken advantage of sexually. It's happened to me. I hate to say that a lot of what Persephone went through, a lot of it kind of mirrors what happened with me, what happened with me. So I understood exactly why she felt so violated. I understood why it was that she felt the need to retreat inside of herself and take shelter inside of her own head. I understand the feeling of confusion, wondering, was this something you really wanted? But at the end of the day, she had her consent taken away from her. And someone in the comments of that chapter where that happened made a point of saying, everybody, you can withdraw consent, even if it's already started. If you don't want it to continue, you can tell them, I don't want it to continue. If you're feeling like, nah, I'm not feeling this. Because either way, it's an assault. If you said okay at first, and then you change your mind, and they keep going, that's assault. You've withdrawn consent. And that's what happened with her. She didn't want to do it. And he just kept going. She was 19. I was 19. Just so many parallels. This is I'm rereading this. This is maybe my 4th or 5th time rereading it. I haven't reread it in a while. I remember when the series was on hiatus for a bit. I reread it then. I was in between seasons 1 and 2. So I reread it a couple of times then, but there's just something about this time around rereading it, that I really felt some pain. It was painful to read. It was hard to read. It was hard to witness. And even knowing, definitely more, knowing what happens further on down the line in Lore Olympus. When I was rereading it and I saw those red flags that I hadn't seen before when I read it the first time, you know, the fact that Apollo kept trying to be so touchy-feely with her. He was always trying to touch her at different points during the day, and you could see her just sort of casually, like, if he put his hand on her shoulder, she'd like brush his hand away, like, no, don't touch me, you know. He would touch her arm, and then she'd like pull her arm out of his hand, you know, like, he just was so handsy with her. And you could see on his face, every time she pulled away from him, every time she was like, no, I'm good, you know, he had such pure rage on his face. If it wasn't a book, if it wasn't a comic, it would be blink and you'll miss it. I just really wanted to talk about this because how fitting that it's raining. I just really wanted to make this video just so I could talk about it while the emotions are still so vivid and intense in my head, you know? But I hear the dulcet, sweet sounds of my husband coming in the door. And I guess good timing. He's a wonderful guy. And I'm really glad that Persephone found Hades. Just like I'm really glad that I found my husband. So with that, I'm going to end the video here. I know it's kind of dark, this topic, but I just needed to make this video. Bye for now.